Instead, you want to be creating a motion which allows you to hit down. And this is where we start to see the real difference. I'm going to basically try and throw that golf ball as far down this hole as I can. So I'm sure you've all had those days when you've gone out there and you've just hit the irons so purely right at the centre, and those rounds are just more enjoyable. Well, we really want to be able to do that every single time, or at least do it more often. And in this video, I really believe that there's some information which can help you do that. Now, we're going to cover some really key concepts. All of these concepts, plus more, are covered in my online training course, Ultimate Ball Striking, which runs you through everything you need to do for every club in the bag to start to find the sweet spot more often. Link down below, and also one up in the corner there as well. So what are we talking about in this video? Well, we're talking really about how the club is delivered to the ball, the strike. Now, hopefully you'll be aware that when we're hitting iron clubs, we really want that club to be descending into the ball. We want that downward negative attack angle. The really key message, which we're going to expand on, is you need to be creating a swing which gives you a downward strike. What you do not want to do at any point in your golf swing is actively, intentionally try to be pushing or forcing the club down. You do not want to be trying to hit down. Instead, you want to be creating a motion which allows you to hit down. And this is where we start to see the real difference. Okay, let's show you a little example here. If I hold this golf club right in the center, okay, watch what happens if I just make a little twisting motion. Okay, which way is that club head going? Well, clearly that club head is going downwards. But the other end, the grip, is going upwards. So just because one end, the club head, is going downwards, it doesn't mean that this end is going downwards. It can do, because we can make this movement where both ends are going downwards. This type of movement, where we're forcing the whole club down, is going to ruin your game. You will not be able to play if that's what you tried to do, but that's what I see all too often. A golfer will make a backswing, and then through impact, they're trying to force the club downwards into the ground. Never ends well. So let's look at what we tend to see as a movement in the body with great players. Well, what do? Well, we know they all get into this fantastic delivery position. They have this almost like this explosive release into this follow-through position. Well, look what my lead shoulder's doing relative to the ground. It's moving further away. What's my lead hand doing relative to the ground? It's moving further away. What's my left hip doing relative to the ground? It's moving further away. What's my knee doing? It's moving further away. The lead side is moving further away from the ground. So if I have this idea, this concept of I need to be hitting down, and I want the whole golf club to be moving downwards into the ground, I'm absolutely not going to be rotating and pivoting like the best players do. And for that reason is why we see so many golf swings. This will be a little exaggerated. We see so many golf swings that look like this on the way through. Just a lack of rotation, because any rotation is doing the opposite to what I think is correct. I'm trying to force the club downwards, and I'm going to stop my rotation. Now, even though my intention there was to drive the club downwards, notice that there's no divot. Because as my rotation stops and stalls, we start to get the arms collapsing, we get this really uncomfortable position on the way through, and I didn't get a divot. So what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to do what I did even more. I'm going to try and force the club even more down. And we start to drift further and further away from what the best players do. So here's our first little drill. You're going to take a golf ball. This is really simply to give you an idea and a concept of what you should be doing through the ball with the body. You're going to take a golf ball and maybe do this in the range. It's going to cost you a golf ball. Maybe do it in a space. I'm just going to take that in my lead hand, and I'm going to create a little posture, and I'm just going to take my lead hand and I'm just going to move it just down behind my trail knee in here. And what I'm going to do, it's in my palm, I'm going to basically try and throw that golf ball as far down this hole as I can. But fairly naturally, what I would do is I certainly wouldn't just use my arm. I'd be using my whole body to rotate and extend through. So let me just show you that now. We're going to go into here, and notice how I said outside my trail knee, which means I'm going to have to actually have a little bit of turn, and I'm actually going to have a little bit of kind of compression in my body. But from here, I'm going to rotate through and throw this ball as far as I can. Okay? way left, okay? It's not important where the ball goes, it's the movement that we're after. So as I show you that back, you know, obviously there's no golf club and there's no trail arm, but that should look relatively similar to what we see the best players in the world do through the ball. That's what they're doing. They're getting from this position here and they're opening up their body, which pulls the shoulder, the hip, the knee and the hand upwards away from the ground. So whilst this is going to be a relatively extreme demonstration, watch what happens in this golf swing. Okay, I'm going to make my backswing, and as I start down, I'm going to be pushing into the ground, and I'm going to get my hands into a position where they're here. As I say, this is extreme. Notice where the club would hit the ground, way back here. But this position allows me now to rotate, push up away, the grip would move upwards, and the club would move downwards. This is what we see the best players in the world do, not this extreme. Guaranteed you're not going to see anyone doing this on the golf course, but what are we seeing? We're seeing a golf swing which would produce a downward strike, a negative attack angle. The club head travelling down, ball, divot, low point after the ball. But the movement is actually me moving up and away from the ball. That starts to mean I'm using the lower body, I'm using the legs, I'm starting to rotate the hips, I'm starting to extend out, I'm starting to get this extension position that we see all the best players in the world do. If you're trying to force the club down, you're not going to be doing any of those things. So the first little exercise, this little drill, get the sensation of what you would do to throw that ball. The next little exercise is working on transition. This is the key. This is what the best players in the world do to allow them to move the way we've just discussed through impact. This is what you're probably not doing. When a good player gets towards a transition, they will move forward and slightly into the ground. They compress their body. I'm sure we've all seen videos of Tiger and Rory and all the great players. When they get to the top, they compress this way. Compressing their body this way means that they get to a point where they are able to then move the grip up and away. So the next exercise I want you to do, take an address and just make some backswings with that initial body movement. And I want you to feel these relatively extreme. This is not going to be how I ultimately hit the shot, but notice what I do in that transition phase. I'm really starting to compress and squeeze into that lead side. My lead shoulder is starting to go downwards. My left hip is starting to go downwards. If you're a terrible iron player, if your strikes are poor, if the distance is no good, if the ball flight's too high, I would almost guarantee that when you see yourself move into your downswing, this shoulder's coming upwards, the head's going back and up. You're pushing away from the ground too early, and then you try and force the club down into the ground by stalling that rotation. Like I said at the start, it's never going to work, but I see that so commonly, and it's concepts, it's ideas, it's not quite grasping what we need to do in that transition phase to enable us to move better through the ball. So we've got what we do through the ball with our little throwing drill, and then we've got an exercise which is going to enable us to transition from the backswing to the downswing in a way that allows us then to connect those two movements together. And I'm going to go ahead and hit one. I've got 8 iron here. I don't think I'm going to be going for that flag. I'm going to try and go a little right of it because it's a tricky flag, but I'm going to be basically squeezing my lead side and then pushing up and away. With any luck, I will still strike this ball well and get a little divot afterwards. And that's gone a little further right than I wanted. A lot further right than I wanted, but strike was good, divot was there. I did what I needed to do. It was a good shot. It was just, well, a bit of a wide on that occasion. But that's what we're after. Squeeze that first move down and then turn and rotate and extend. The two have to go together. The first movement allows the second one to happen. These are some of the most important concepts that you need to understand and work on if you're to improve your iron game. Good iron play is a result of consistently striking the ball well. Those ideas, those concepts will allow you to do that. It's not a quick fix, it'll take a bit of practice, but I guarantee you, put the work in, you'll see the results in the game. It's a lot more fun when you're striking your irons well. I'm sure we've all had those days, like we said at the start. We just want to replicate those as often as we can. Thanks for watching. Usual stuff is down below, and I'd love to see you back here again for a future video.